Right, okay, day one, Australia 3 for 330. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Dave Warner. That's all people want to talk about. That's really actually the only thing that's keeping this summer ticking along. A bit of Palace intrigue, Crystal Palace intrigue. Wilf Zaha, where's he going? Roy Hodgson, did he leave too soon? That kind of gear. What's happening with the Big Eagle? They saw the Big Eagle before the game starts. What's happening with that? Dave Warner has what's the right word here? He has withdrawn his application to overturn the decision of his lifetime ban. That's what I'm talking about here. Pez, it just strikes me as just an absolute stitch up. It's just a good old fashioned stitch up. In that they've really fucked him. You know, they've really gone and fucked him hard, and they've basically asked him to create an absolute bloodbath by making it a public hearing. You know, let's get it all out in the opening under the guise of some sort of fucking cleansing, like we're cleaning, like a douche. It's an anal douching, like we're just cleaning out our colon. And that would be in any way beneficial, like the day before the Boxing Day test, henceforth, otherwise known as Christmas Day. Like it's a day before one of the other the actual test matches when the real summer starts. This is sort of like warm-up stuff in between the World Cup and the South Africa series that he'd have to talk about. Like he'd have to talk about the current coach, the past coach. He'd have to talk about the current captain, the previous captain, what really happens. You know, we've already seen some commentary from his agent, James Erskine, about there were some senior executives in the room and they sort of decided they had to tamper the ball. It's already getting ridiculous. But in any regard, this was all about him maybe captaining for about 7 minutes in the BBL. It just struck me as just a fucking free kick. Just like no one was saying he was going to captain the Australian Test side for the next 5 years. I don't even think like that. That might have been an option for a game or two, as is, you know, also another guy who was somewhat involved in that incident, sandpaper with, Steve Smith now captaining this game. And they've just gone and fucked him. They've just gone and absolutely stitched him up. And I'm only annoyed about it, mate, because like I look at this test match and it's a fucking diabolical test match. Come on, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, look at the state of the West Indies. And that's not even their fault per se. But it's just like cricket's going in this direction where it's just going to take leadership. It's going to take leadership from the governing body of the team that we support sometimes. And I'm not really seeing a bunch of leadership because fuck me, they have made Dave Warner the patsy. He's just, I'm seeing some grassy knoll stuff, you know. There was a second shooter. There was a third shooter. It wasn't Dave Warner in the old book depository there. But, I'm seeing some magic bullet theory shit. And, I guess it's going to be like, no, he's the bad guy. He's the evil one. Not seeing a bunch of leadership here, mate. And it'd be funny if it wasn't so obviously sad on his family. Anyway, I'm going to let you come in because I'm just going to rant for fucking 5 minutes here. But that was the start of the day. How'd you set a good toss to win?
Yeah, what flavour ice cream was it tonight?
Cab Sav.
Yeah, man. Oh, it's funny. As funny as you say that, I think like just from the top, what's happened over the last couple of days with Warner is just the latest installment in an absolute shit show of 5 years of shit with this. And actually the shit show goes back decades with Australian cricket. Like, I haven't read through every single thing, with this latest episode. And
yeah,
I think that we'll probably give it a pretty good crack at the next podcast when we get across the detail of it a bit more. But as you speak, like I could probably hear people going, yeah, but Warner's a cunt, mate, And that's the binary world we live in, like his character has been so grating to a lot of people that they switch off. We're talking about bureaucracy now. He's been fucked by bureaucracy and people don't really have the time, to get into that kind of thing. And I understand that. And also, how much time do people have in their lives to, for sympathy for a multi-millionaire, who actually was part of the transgression, who fucked up. People are like, okay, I could understand why people are like, listen, just get on and play cricket, as Jim Maxwell, someone as esteemed as Jim Maxwell said today, which I think it goes back to a grade cricket issue with Warner leaving Eastern Suburbs to play for Herdwick Petisham.
Are you talking about his former club president, Jim Maxwell?
Someone in the comments underneath said, this is just grade cricket. And it's like, mate, you don't understand how true that is, brother. But so I hear that. I hear that from people. I suppose, like, from a personal perspective, without knowing like the full detail of who appointed these commissioners, why did it need to be public? What do the commissioners say about that? If they're going to say anything at all, what role did CA have in the appointment of these commissioners? Let's have a look at that. That's getting into some weeds stuff. But I think if you're flying at 50,000 feet at it, sandpaper was a summit on Australian cricket culture broadly, I think. I don't think it was just one discrete incident. It was the result of like years of investment in that ugly way of playing cricket. And I think that many, many people are responsible for that. Warner is obviously deeply responsible for the transgression of sandpaper, which is ball tampering, which a lot of people do. Simon Longstaff in the Ethics Commission, the ethics guy who now works at CA, he drew that same conclusion as well. But there's also, like, at the time with sandpaper and since then, there's been this sense that Warner had accrued so much ill will from the administration, who are now former administrators, and those involved, that they kind of had it in for him. He and his people have been warning, about this. And yesterday's news just amplifies that sense, really. The idea that this needed to be public is, deserves some testing. But that's all I think I could really say before getting into the weeds on it. But I reckon when we do get into the weeds, there's going to be some good conspiracy shit. But I do think, it's tempered. Oh, sorry, tampered. What? It's tempered by the fact that Warner's said and done enough things to turn people off him, and it doesn't work in his favour when it comes to the binary public opinion. But I think he has been stitched up. You can not like David Warner for whatever reason, but some of the dark forces operating against him are people who have, I believe, who have careers far more evil, and nasty than anything that a bloke from a housing commission in Matraville who's done well and is a self-made man in cricket's ever done. Warner might have said and done a few dumb things, but some of the people who've acted against him here, I think, operate on a deeper level than that. Anyway, and I thought he threw one away today.
I think, unfortunately, both things can be true. You cannot like the guy and also recognise that there might have been a fucking massive stitch up. Okay, let's get into the game itself. And even before the game, a couple of changes for Australia in that they have rested, I think, for the most part. They've rested Cummins and Hazelwood with some general soreness gear, bit of quadricep gear, a little bit of general soreness gear. Although I actually before I say go on with that, I do think that there's something a bit more serious with Hazelwood I saw before, and I think might be a little bit more longer term. But that aside, I'm going to go with rested. Because that is my
Andrew
right.
Wu said he was rested from Adelaide last year for the same reason and ended up missing 4 tests that summer. So, let's see.
Yeah, exactly. And so that gave us a chance to see Scott Boland again, the old barrel Boland there, and Michael Nisa. And I don't feel comfortable when people say Nessa because it doesn't really make any sense anthropologically. Anyway, so that's the team. And also West Indies brought out a couple of blokes who were just out here playing club cricket, I'm pretty sure. Let's just talk about Marnus, man. Let's just talk about that bit because he scored his 10th Test 100 today. He scored 300s in a row now. I just remember distinctly when he first came into the team thinking, what the fuck is this shit? Who the fuck is this? This guy averages like 28 in Shield cricket. I'm not saying anything. He's like getting run out at the bowler's end off like fingertips in the UAE in Pakistan like 2018. I'm just like, he's just giving his wicket away. There was no hope of this. And now I'm just looking at the best batsman in Test cricket. I mean, Joe Root's pretty good as well, and there's some other good guys, don't get me wrong, but he's by statistics, number one. He averages over 60 now in Test cricket. He scored 3,000 Test runs, 300s in a row. He's just now recently a father. That's really got nothing to do with anything. I just want to say that because I want to keep talking. And it's just, I just never saw this coming. He's fucking amazing.
And like, do you think that says more about just how surprising it is that he's elevated, or maybe you're just not a cricket scout?
Well, as you know, I've never made a mistake on air. Couple off air, but never on air. So that must mean something, that he's done something. And I want to suggest peptides, or maybe he's corking his bat.
It's got to be something. He might be. He's got God on his side. That was unnecessary.
True.
Yeah, like the 100 today was just inevitable. It was imperious. It was one of those like once in, never getting out. Actually, I wouldn't say it's imperious when you look at Heady. Who I'm looking forward to getting onto the bin lid, but yeah, like as you say, like he's amassing numbers that now I think he's at the kind of starting line of like, oh, okay, can he become a great? But he's only at the starting line. He's in all the statistical little lists now of like best form, and like, his numbers are amongst the greats of the game. But I've just noted the conversation even tonight. SEN's great to listen to for cricket coverage. Got to say, like Jared Waitley, Colo, and then when Chris Rogers is commentating with them, he's really good. Damien Fleming and stuff, and they had a great chat about Marnus with all this kind of stuff, and all of his numbers are great. He's averaging 60. It's 3,000 test runs, in 30 matches or some shit like that, and 10 test hundreds. And I might have had the total runs wrong there. I don't know. Who cares? But now it's like, okay, can he do it in other places? You know, which is a big one. They compared him to Smith in that respect, and he hasn't had heaps of chances yet, Marnus, to do that. But he's got Asia ahead of him. We've not really seen him in Asia, and by Asia I just mean India. Obviously, there's other places, and he didn't go that well in Pakistan,
Or Sri Lanka. Yeah,
that's right, and then there's England as well, where he came in, halfway through, really replaced, that's where his journey started, 3-4 years ago, really, that's when Marnus came of age and got respect in the side. So that's his next challenge. And, you look at Smith, it was amazing listening to the guys talk about Smith's average away. Smith averages 51 away from home.
Fuck.
That's a joke. No, that's wrong. Sorry. That was wrong. He averages 60 away from home, 51 in India. Fuck out of here. Like that's
it's pretty good.
Marnus knows how to get it done at home. I'll be interested to see. Like they were meant to bump him today, weren't they? And then like they just trotted out 4 blokes at 115k and Alzari Joseph with an injury. Like there's an injury there too. But I'll be interested to see if South Africa can body line him out. With a couple of rapid boys knocking around there. So Marnus is at the start line for greatness, and let's see, and I'll accept nothing but that. If he doesn't achieve it, it'll be a failure. That's what we do in Australia to our bats.
I'm worried to get straight into how shit the West Indies were today, because it's not even their fault, but they've got that backup wicketkeeper bowling 9 overs today, Devon Thomas, who's got a first class average of 33. He's got 20 wickets in about 100 games. He gets Usman out and then proceeds to bowl 5 of the worst deliveries I've seen in a while, including a bouncer to Steve Smith, which actually took a second bounce before it got to Portugal's finest. And then they've always got 3 or 4 part-timers bowling today. But I thought Warner started amazingly. Then it was like, this is fucking junk. And then tries to tee off every ball. I thought Steve Smith was lazy in his dismissal. I thought he was just trying to get it. He played a shot like he was on 60 already. But to celebrate Marnus even more, Marnus strikes me as the guy he's at the part of his career where he's fucking hungry. And I'm not saying Steve Smith isn't hungry. Steve Smith's record is just unbelievably good. But I just don't think Steve Smith has the same hunger. He will never have the same hunger as the 2019 Ashes when he came back and he did that, because there was so much to prove and all that stuff, but Marnus has the hunger of a guy who just wants to bat forever. And I feel like for Smith runs at the moment, the conditions need to be a certain way, or he obviously needs to feel a certain way. I see Marnus as just like, he just fucking loves batting so much that he is hungrier than anyone else in the Australian team, I think, at the moment. 120 of 235 balls, grounded out. He's facing, let's be honest, a fucking pop gun attack, which is barely first grade. But you got to get him. So let's talk about Travis Head. He looks fucking amazing. And he has absolutely nailed down the number 5 spot, especially in Australia. It's a weird one because there may be better guys to bat it in India, for instance, but in Australia, there is no better number 5, I don't think, in Test cricket than Travis Head. I mean, he's scoring so quickly as well, comparatively. You know, I know other guys are doing other stuff across the world, but it's actually really slow, 114 of 139. But fuck me, he's hitting some balls. He got a lot of width today. Again, shit attack, but Travis Head, loving it. The old bin lid.
Bin lid, home ton, home head, home boy.
Nice.
Mate, he's my favourite Australian batter to watch at the moment. Like the circus whip crack of the blade, the way he crashes it through the offside, like the flourish of his bat hinged in perfect symmetry with his wrists. You know, as Brian Charles Lara watches on and approves from commentary, and now you throw to a car ad where the ghost of a dead dad's fumbling his keys because he wants to drive off in a Hilux. You know, and now he's another ad. He's another ad where, you know, a techie's yelling out to fucking how's that to a bunch of blokes in whites on the field who also yell out how's that back, and there's no umpires. Fucking frightening. And the thing about Travis Head's flourishes through the offside now is that they seem to have lost their streakiness. You know, like there's some. I feel like there's been possibly just a little stiffening of his technique. A lot of those flourishes through the offside are going straighter now than they were before. I mean, I'm absolutely sick for a Travis Head square drive. Like, that's the ultimate sex for me. Right. But he's probably going to score more runs if they go straighter. So we're also seeing like an upward curve of Head as well. And I'm absolutely here for it because I love the bin lid and I love the way he hits the ball. It's fucking great to watch. That's I'd go to watch it. It's fucking like so many shots that like absolutely pierce or crash through the offside leave me going, oh yeah. Like he plays those, like when Marnus hits a boundary, you don't often go like shot, you know, like he kind of just works the ball through, which is, he's just a run hungry beast. But like when Travis Head like hits it through the boundary, it's fucking stylish. It's crashed. It's belligerent. It's good shit. But now I'm going to start to think about what I don't like about him, and that's India, Asia, and that's again the Australian psyche there.
Yep, like it. Hashtag ASKTGC, unless you want to talk about anything else.
I just wanted to say that the West Indies, if you just bring a team to Australia that bowls 115, 120 Ks an hour with doorknob spin both ends, like what chance have you got? But great cable knit jumpers. Cheers.
Fantastic. It's the best. It's the best test kit. No question for me. Hashtag ASKTGC. Isaac wrote in via Twitter. And drop in your hashtag ASKTGCs in the comment below if you want us to answer it tomorrow. 3 for 300 after day one. Are Australia 200 below par after a day's play? It's an interesting point. Seventh in the world the other day, scoring about 700 runs in a day's play. First in the world, just grinding out the opposition. And I think that's good for Test cricket for me. I like to see graft. I like to walk in and out of. I don't want to feel like I have to watch every over in 90 overs in a day's play. I don't feel like I need that. You know,
And Ben Stokes is on the front foot in his comments today, talking about wanting to change the game of Test cricket. And, you know, look, we don't operate with any self-preservation here. Like, honestly, the bloke would sound like it's everything that David Brent would say, except that he's an absolute worldie, so he can say it. He's earned the right to say these things because of like the massive change and revolution they're trying to bring to the game, and it's working. But if you just remove that component, it's Brent. There will be a time when it doesn't work, so he will become Brent very quickly when it doesn't work once, and then he'll go back to being a worldie. So I just think what Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum is doing is absolutely incredible. It's some of the best cricket I've ever seen in my life, probably the best. But it's very close to being David Brent, and I'm kind of hanging out for that.
Yeah. I'm hearing basically since ball one of this whole Bazball thing, just like, but when it doesn't work, it won't look great. It hasn't not worked yet, and that's the annoying bit, because it's now been about a year, and it's like it keeps working, and it keeps getting actually incrementally better. No, not incrementally, by a factor of 10 every time. Like I thought like New Zealand was good, and now all of a sudden they're in Pakistan, and Jimmy Anderson's fucking taken 5 for 10, and he's 80 years old. It's like. Yeah, but when it doesn't work.
Exactly. But I am a guy on the internet, and all I do is hang out for mistakes where I can make some pithy remark and go off and masturbate.
Yeah. And then I can go, oh, what about Bristol that time when he put? Yeah, okay. All right, well, that's the theme of this show. We'll see you guys. Hey, if you're in Adelaide, we'll be on stage on Saturday, and we'll also be in Adelaide generally tomorrow. So if you see us, I don't know, just say one mistake here, boys. Very simple, chalky, I guess. See you guys on the internet tomorrow.